This week's episode is about being unwilling to accept certain aspects of a situation or your current life. This is something that I've been thinking about for a little while now after I read Unfuck Yourself by Gary John Bishop. Definitely a really thought-provoking, motivating, goal-oriented type of book. Very great read. Strongly suggest, not sponsored or anything like that, but I definitely think that this was a book that, for me, put into perspective a lot of choices, a lot of situations that, for me, I've found over my life and thinking about it over the past few weeks now, have really made a difference in where I am today versus where I was a month ago, a couple years ago, when I was a kid to now. Just personality adjustments and growth that I've had, and thinking about it after reading definitely, I think, speaks a lot to this. One of the things in regard to this topic of being unwilling that's in the book is, when you are unwilling, it often represents a line in the sand where you are no longer willing to go back to the way you came. And I think that that sentence right there just totally incorporates, encapsulates decisions for me that I have made, and how we all have these decisions. We all have a line in the sand, no matter what aspect of our life it is. When it comes to nutrition, comes to physical activity, when it comes to your career, when it comes to relationships that you're in, when it's the living situation and where you see yourself in the next 5 years, when it's a family situation, regardless of what it is, I think there's always a line in the sand that's drawn, and how far we allow that line to be in front of us based on the current situation, I think really speaks to what we tolerate and what we're willing to put up with. And the book does touch on that as well, of what are you willing to put up with, and that's your situation, versus what are you unwilling to put up with anymore. For me, unwillingness has been far more influential on my life than I think being willing. And that probably sounds absolutely ass backwards. And it took me a while, like I said, to think about this and really look back on my experiences and choices and decisions that I've made to really be able to articulate, I think, as best I can, that unwillingness for me has been a lot of my driving force to where I am now. To me, the being willing and willingness, in my opinion, invites a more passive action, because you're willing to make a change, and it can rely on being motivated over being disciplined about taking action to make these changes. Being willing to make a change, in my opinion, is a lot more of planning and like, oh yeah, I'm willing to make a change. It just, to me, sounds so much more passive, so much more, yeah, I'll get to it, versus being unwilling. I think is acknowledging something that you've put up with for too long, something that you don't want to accept anymore, whether it's new or it's something that's been going on for a while. And to me, unwilling, it just invites action. It's more easily, and to me, just to follow and be disciplined around the action necessary to no longer have that event, that situation, that relationship in your life. I'm unwilling to put up with this. Unwilling. I think that's such a stronger word. It has a lot more tone, I believe, behind it. I'm unwilling to put up with this versus I'm willing to make a change. Both are very powerful statements, don't get me wrong, but shit, for me, when I'm unwilling to put up with something, when I'm unwilling to deal with something that's been going on, to let something slide anymore, for me, I am so much faster to take action and put a plan in place and just execute on these things than me when I'm willing to do something. And let me just talk through a couple of examples for me of being unwilling to put up with a situation anymore, and how quickly these situations were no longer a part of my life. And I think it's really spoken volumes for me to where I am now. I think for me, one of the biggest career examples has been one of my jobs was a position where it was challenging. It was new. It was a new experience for me, and it got to the point where, for me, the culture became very toxic. Just something where I wasn't feeling like going into work anymore. I lost all motivation. My discipline to go in was because I didn't want to get fired. And just going in feeling like absolute shit wasn't something that I wanted to feel like anymore. I was unwilling to put myself in a situation that I'm at work 40 plus hours a week and sitting in that cube and with those people and in that environment that was just draining me. I was in probably one of the lowest points of my mental health and discipline and just general well-being that I think I'd been in a very, very long time, and just questioning a lot of things in my life at that point. And I think it all had to come around this one thing of I was in a place where I was unhappy for just so long, months at a time, and there was a point where it clicked. I was like, fuck this. I am not putting up with this culture, with this feeling of just shit any longer. And I took action. I immediately made that decision of I'm not willing to put up with this shit anymore. I'm not willing to continue to sit through this. And I'm making a change. I updated my resume. I started going out to other places to do interviews. I met with staffing agencies. I took action almost the same day. I put a plan in place and was like, this is what I need. This is what I want. And how am I going to go get it? And the way that I needed to go get it was by putting myself out there, taking the time. And even though I was mentally exhausted because of the situation I was in after work, I looked at jobs. I was actively looking and reviewing jobs and applying day in and day out, and took meetings. I put myself out there, and within a few weeks, I ended up finding a new position that I was so much happier in. And being unwilling to put up with that situation any longer, and being unwilling to feel that way anymore, for me, put me on a completely different trajectory, in my opinion, for where I am now in my career. And again, that unwillingness, I took action almost immediately. Yeah, there was a couple of times during that period where I said, yeah, I'm willing to put up with this. My money's okay. I'm covering my bills. But I was also willing to make a change. But once it clicked and that unwillingness happened, it was over. That was when action happened. I took advantage of what resources I had, and I made a change. For me, a couple of personal examples of being unwilling to put up with situations or relationships that I had built any longer. I was unwilling to have these things come up. So one is just certain friends. I'm a firm believer that sometimes people aren't meant to be around forever in your life. They're meant to show you something, teach you something, give you that ability to reflect on something. And for me, there have been individuals that I've been unwilling to put up with the negative aura, for lack of a better term right now, but that negative energy, that negative attitude, that woe is me, oh shit, this is terrible situation. And there have been, a few people that have come across my life over the years that have been like that. And at first I thought it was just, you know what, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes people have a bad week, a bad month. Like I just said, I had a bad fucking couple of months. So I took it always with a grain of salt. But once it became a trend and I was realizing, you know what, this is how the person is. I was unwilling to have that type of negative influence, negative energy on my life, because I am a very positive person. So being unwilling, I started to see them less and less. I started to not go to certain parties that they were at. I would find other plans. I took action to keep the positive people. I am willing to keep the positive people in my life. I'm willing to put in that effort for those people, and I'm unwilling to, for me, be around people that I don't feel are a positive influence on me, for whatever the reason may be. And I think one of my biggest ones in my life was when I was playing hockey. Around middle school, high school, I was unwilling to play for a coach anymore that didn't see my value, that didn't see what I could bring to the team, and questioned my abilities. It questioned the skills that I had. It questioned everything in the way that I played. And it killed my confidence. It killed my game. It killed how well I performed on the ice. And it made me question at times if hockey was it for me. And honestly, I was willing for that season to put up with the coach. I was willing for that next season. You know what? Maybe it was me. Maybe I had a bad season. And just being willing, I kept going. I said nothing. But being unwilling, when that moment hit of, you know what? I can't put up with this type of coaching anymore. I can't do this anymore. I reached out to parents, to past coaches, to other players to see what their plan was, what they were doing. And I took action to no longer be under that coach and be able to play for a team that saw my value. And that next year I was a co-captain, and I was on the ice for almost every single situation. I was in a situation, I was on a team that saw the value I brought. I was on the ice for important situations, and my confidence skyrocketed, and my ability to play went back to where I was before. And again, that unwillingness made me take action. So this is the question that I want to leave you guys this week, after hearing my examples and hearing my opinions on unwillingness versus willingness. Both, like I said, very important aspects. But is there something in your life right now that you are just putting up with? Something that you might be feeling you're getting to that point of being unwilling to tolerate anymore? And honestly, do you agree with me that being unwilling is a stronger motivator than being willing? What has been your experience? So that is it for this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed my take, that being unwilling to tolerate situations, relationships, etc., and taking action to stop them can make a huge impact on who you are and where you end up down the line. That the unwillingness can really provide that strong motivating force, and I think find it more easy to be disciplined to stop those things. And how willingness may just be as important, don't get me wrong, and that being willing is critical to making those changes. And for you, that may be the stronger motivating force. And I'm really curious to hear, has it been being unwilling or being willing to make those changes? I'm really looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts, your feelings, and your opinions on this week's episode. Please do leave a comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram. We just got our YouTube up and running. please do follow any of those social media accounts. If you don't already, please click subscribe on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, however you follow us. Give us a rating. And our social media pages, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, are Build Your Alpha. And I do hope that you guys join us next week. But until then, take every day as a blessing, because the next is not guaranteed. So take that chance, be authentic, and always know you are the only you.